another video. So in today's video we are going to be doing a reaction video today, and we're going to be reacting to this video I made 1 year ago today. So in 2024, just before the Premier League season was ending, I made this video predicting every Premier League club's next manager. Now, since making this video, there's been around 9 managerial changes in total for, well, the clubs which were in the Premier League at this point when I made the video. So I thought it would be a pretty interesting idea to go back and have a look at the video and see how I got on. Did I manage to get any of those 9 correct? And, you know, there are certain managers who maybe are close to leaving as well, so we'll also see maybe if I'm on the right track there. So yeah, it should be pretty fun, should be pretty interesting. You'll get like double ASMR here. I believe this video is soft spoken, see, but I'll whisper when I react, so you're gonna get like soft spoken and whispering. But let's see how I do. I'm hoping I can get like at least one correct here, but it's probably, I mean, this probably is gonna be really bad. I reckon there's gonna be some absolutely honking predictions in there, but let's get into it. Let's begin, and usually we go in alphabetical order, but I thought I'll, switch it up. Wolves fans are sick of being last and wait until the end, so we're going to go in a completely random order this time. Okay, I'm ready. So, starting off with Brentford. Rob Edwards. Oh god, that stinks. Perhaps a better bet would be to prioritise consistency, dependability and reliability. Such can be the perils of transitioning from a long-term manager into a new era. Edwards carries that same air of authority which, married with a quietly strategic mind, seems suited to making sense of a Premier League chaos. Right, well, we are off to an absolutely disastrous start here. So Brentford, of course, have not changed their manager as of yet, so hey, technically I could still be right, but it looks highly unlikely that I will be right with this prediction, because since making this video of Rob Edwards, I did think actually did a pretty good job with Luton. I think overall has done a good job with Luton, getting them into the Premier League, and they were pretty competitive in the Prem, so I understand the logic. But he got relegated with Luton, and we all know the struggles they've had this year. They are potentially getting back-to-back relegations, and Rob Edwards was sacked as Luton manager midway through this season. Yeah, it just didn't work out, so I mean, it's highly unlikely he's going to be getting a Premier League job next. So yeah, probably by the time Brentford appoint their manager, I don't think Rob Edwards is going to be the man to replace Thomas Frank, so this is not a good start. Nottingham Forest. David Moyes. Okay. There's no point pretending Moyes' 4th Premier League club will probably be his last. As south as things have gone at West Ham, he remains a very effective coach in the right circumstances, and many clubs will favour that over progressive football. If Nottingham Forest are willing to bring Nuno back after his consistent occupation of the upper mid-table and failure in the biggest job of his coaching career, then Moyes need not fear for his future employment. Okay, so, you know what? I think that's actually a pretty fair analysis here. Of course, Nottingham Forest have not appointed David Moyes, and David Moyes has joined another Premier League club since, so, I mean, I've not got the Everton one right, but was still at West Ham when I made this video, and it wasn't going particularly great, and it was likely it was probably going to leave at the end of the season. It wasn't confirmed. So firstly here, I was predicting Moyes would leave West Ham at the end of the season, which did happen. And then I said he would join another Premier League club, and even if he doesn't play progressive football, he'll be a steady set of hands for a club like Forest. And while of course he didn't join Forest because Nuno has done amazing this year, he has joined a club which at the time is similar sort of stature. They were a mid-table club like Forest, Everton, and he has done pretty good there. So look, I was wrong, but I don't think it was a bad shout, and I'm pretty pleased that, I said Moyes would be back in the Prem with a different club, not managing West Ham. I just got the wrong club.
Luton, John Mousinho.
Okay.
Top of League One, clear of Derby and Bolton, the 37-year-old's first managerial role has gone rather well, and the question is quickly becoming whether Bombay can join him on this incredible rise.
Okay, so this is the first club which actually has changed their manager since I made this video. So as I mentioned, Luton got relegated from a Prem and did not do well. They sacked Rob Edwards halfway through the season. Now I predicted John Mousinho would be manager. He is not. It is, I believe, the next manager that followed Rob Edwards and Matt Bloomfield. But I was actually on sort of right lines. Mousinho at the time was a League One manager doing really well for a promotion chasing Portsmouth side, and Bloomfield has come in from, I believe, Wickham, who also a League One promotion chasing side. So I was on the right lines. I don't think many people would have predicted that that guy would be managing Luton when at the time of this video they were in the Prem. So I'm not too mad about this shout. Mousinho is still at Portsmouth, and he led them to promotion, and they're in the Championship right now. So while I am off on this prediction, and it's another one wrong, I was on sort of right line, so I'm not too mad.
Fulham, Steve Cooper. A weird situation appears to have at least temporarily engulfed the coaching career of Cooper, who did excellently in difficult circumstances at Nottingham Forest, but whose best prospects of continuing in the Premier League seem to be through another promotion from the Championship. Crystal Palace considered his case closely by all accounts, but Cooper has otherwise only been linked with Championship vacancies. But he could, and indeed should, be aiming higher.
Right, so this is another one here where I know I've guaranteed got Leicester wrong because Steve Cooper was the next Leicester City manager. Although, actually, wait, Leicester weren't in the Prem at this time, so they wouldn't be in this video. But, okay, so I tipped Steve Cooper to return to the Prem. He did return to the Prem, but he did return with Leicester. It didn't last too long, of course, this season. He is definitely not going to be the next Fulham manager. Yeah, but it's probably quite wrong, but I mean, he did go get a job back in the Prem, so I guess that's something, maybe. I don't know, it's quite poor. This isn't going too well right now.
Brighton, Kieran McKenna. This is very hard, as Brighton already have a name in mind, saved on a laptop. Chelsea will probably happily spend a 9-figure sum to acquire. No club will have a clearer contingency plan in mind, yet equally no club's plan is more difficult to figure out. Brighton give nothing away, and when it last came to replacing a manager, De Zerbi only really emerged as a primary candidate when the deal was close to completion.
I am wrong here. Brighton did get a new manager after this video, but I mean, I was right. I said, they're gonna just find some sort of random guy who no one had really heard of, and Fabian Herzler was that no one was really talking about this guy, or had known about this guy in England at least. He was managing the second tier of Germany last season at the time of this video, so there was really no way I was ever going to predict him being the next Brighton manager. However, I am pretty pleased with this shout about Kieran McKenna, because I believe when De Zerbi left, which was not announced before this video, McKenna was actually heavily linked with the Brighton job. I believe it was Brighton and Chelsea who were very interested in hiring McKenna in the summer, and McKenna has been linked with a lot of jobs, big jobs in the past, and I could, to be honest, still see McKenna maybe one day becoming a Brighton manager. So, yeah, I mean, at this time, McKenna was still managing in the Championship, Ipswich were not promoted yet, so I actually, I don't think this is a pretty bad shout. As I said, there was pretty strong rumours that McKenna was one of the favourites to actually land the Brighton job, and this video was made way before that, so I'm pretty pleased about this, even if I didn't get this prediction right.
Liverpool. Xabi Alonso. Well, this is one where I can actually see at the end of the season if I'm right with Klopp leaving. Now more than ever feels the right time to get Alonso. Real Madrid won't be stepping in with Ancelotti's contract running out next year. Bayern Munich will inevitably try, but that move might not happen, given how much he loves Leverkusen right now. And as long as Pep Guardiola doesn't suffer a case of the Jurgens, there will be no positions to fill at Man City. Liverpool cannot guarantee a smooth and successful transition from their greatest period in the modern era, but Alonso is unique in that he will garner an immediate level of buy-in from fans.
Alright, so this was, I think, one of the only ones in this video where the manager had actually been announced they were leaving at the end of the season. As I mentioned, with Liverpool, Klopp by this point had announced he was leaving. Now, I was wrong here, but keep in mind, I did put a pinned comment on this video, and I said that this video was filmed, like it was pre-recorded video, and it was filmed before Xabi Alonso stated he was going to stay at Leverkusen. Of course, he did not become Liverpool manager. Slot did, but again, I feel like not many people would have predicted that Arne Slot would be Liverpool manager at this point in time. And Xabi Alonso shout, I think it made sense. He was one of the favourites to get the job, and I actually do think if Alonso was available and wanted to make the move, Liverpool would have made that move. I think he was the first choice, but he just didn't want to move. I also will give myself a bit of a half point here because I did say that he wouldn't go Real Madrid, and I said he wouldn't go Bayern Munich either. So yeah, I was ultimately wrong, but I can understand the thinking here.
West Ham. Graham Potter.
Oh my days, let's go.
Inevitable though his Premier League return seems, it is difficult to get a proper handle on Potter. Potter remains an obviously talented coach, but the Chelsea debacle undoubtedly tainted him as a commodity among that calibre of club, and he would have to accept that he must take a perceived step down for the good of his career. West Ham would be just the right drop down, not too big but not too small, and if Moyes goes this summer with his contract up, I'm sure Potter will be high on that West Ham wish list, and if offered that job, he would be silly not to take it.
Okay, let's go. I've actually got one right. Well, technically not. Technically I'm still wrong here and still 0 correct because I was predicting the next manager and technically technically, at the point of this video, Lopetegui was the next West Ham manager, not Potter. But I don't care. I'm still giving myself massive props here because, look, firstly, I said that Moyes would leave at the end of the season and Potter would come in, which did not happen. But as we know, Potter is the West Ham manager right now. So I was a little bit off with my timing, but I mean, I got this correct. I said he would have to take a step down, which at the time of this video, I remember people linking him to the United job and some big jobs like Borussia Dortmund, I think, as well. So I said he would go West Ham. He is the West Ham manager right now. I'm pretty pleased about this. I've actually got one right, even if I was technically wrong, but I'm very happy about that.
Chelsea. Ruben Amorim.
Oh boy.
Amorim has been mentioned in certain Chelsea circles, and beyond a lack of Premier League experience, there are a little obvious drawbacks to his candidacy. Trophies, European pedigree, strong character, and Amorim would come with the added bonus of a 4-game unbeaten streak against Spurs and Arsenal. He seems a good fit for the job, which may come about soon if Poch doesn't get his act together. The Chelsea board have an obsession with youngsters, and Amorim is quite young when it comes to the manager space, only aged 39. So, I mean, that's another bonus, and why he would be a great fit. I'm sure the Chelsea board are very, very big admirers of him. He is already loosely linked to the job and is ready for the step up. Now, as a Chelsea fan, how do I feel if this were to happen? Mixed feelings, but I really think that the Chelsea board are going to go for Amorim, and if not, they'll just resort to the norm and go and get De Zerbi, as they love Brighton.
Alright, now that is very, very interesting. So I predicted Ruben Amorim would be joining a Big Six Premier League club. He did, of course, but I predicted the wrong one. I said he would be joining my club, Chelsea. So, at the time, this is another club which did change managers. We had Poch and we went for Enzo Maresca. Similar to other ones, I don't think anybody was going to predict that at this point in time. Maresca was managing in the Championship with Leicester City in a promotion race, and we were, trying to push for top 6 football, so I really don't think anyone was going to predict that. But it's interesting. I said Amorim, and even if I'm wrong, I'm again going to take a bit of a half point here because I said Amorim would manage a Big Six side in the Premier League. I said he would come in. I also said Chelsea would hire a relatively young manager, which we did in Enzo Maresca. I did say we would probably go get De Zerbi instead. That didn't happen as well. But yeah, we didn't get Amorim, but I'm pretty pleased. I did tip Amorim to become a top 6 manager, a Big Six manager. But I guess that means I got United one wrong, so it'll be interesting who I selected there.
Manchester City. Michel Sanchez.
Oh God.
Picking a successor to Pep at Man City might be one of the hardest on this list, but there is a rather boring and obvious candidate. They will have their pick of managers, but the next manager is already technically theirs. Mikel is working wonders with Girona, and they are ultimately and understandably doomed title challenge has already placed 48-year-old Mikel on many esteemed radars. Of course.
Okay, so Man City, of course, have not changed managers yet, so there is a possibility this could still be right, but I mean, it would be very, very unlikely that this is right. I understand why I did it, Miguel. As I said, in the video at the time was competing for the title in La Liga with Girona. He was already part of the City group, but this season they've completely collapsed, and I've had nowhere near the same level of success. I don't know when Pep is going to leave, but when he does leave, I think this guy here is not going to be very high on their radar, if I'm being completely honest, unless he has some amazing turnaround with Girona.
Bournemouth, Carlos Corberán.
Okay.
In explaining Bournemouth's switch in philosophy from survival and counter-attacking to the aggressive front foot stylings of Andoni Iraola, Cherry's owner Bill Foley described the new manager as a Bielsa student and fast-paced. There is really only one way to go from there, and a quick scan of Bielsa disciples shows Corberán in a favourable light for his work in the Championship with Huddersfield and West Brom.
Okay, so I said Carlos Corberán would be the next Bournemouth manager, which could technically still happen. He could succeed Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth, but I've had to put my money on it. I don't think so. I am, again, going to give myself a bit of a half point here though, because I'm tipping Carlos Corberán here to make that step up to a top level team. This season he did make that step up. He left West Brom to join Valencia, and he's done a pretty good job there too. Now, is he going to leave to go to Bournemouth? Maybe, I don't know. I'll be real, I don't even think that's a bad shout. If Corberán went to Bournemouth right now, I think he would do pretty good, to be honest. But Iraola could leave this summer, and if he does leave this summer, I doubt Corberán is going to jump ship from Valencia just after joining, so it's probably going to be wrong, but I don't think it was an awful shout, and I still stand by that Corberán would do a good job there.
Sheffield United, Scott Parker.
Ooh, okay.
Sheffield look pretty doomed, and unless they have a Leicester miracle, they are heading to the Championship next season. Chris Wilder will probably start the season with them there, but I don't see him lasting very long. Probably won't last the season. So they will turn to an experienced Championship manager to help them get out of trouble, in Scott Parker, who is without a job right now.
Okay, now this is really interesting because Sheffield United did not part companies with Chris Wilder like I stated. I thought they would struggle when they went back down to the Championship, and they have not. Chris Wilder's done a really good job with them back in the Championship, and is still manager there. But what is interesting is I tipped Scott Parker to be their manager, and while I'm wrong, Scott Parker did become a manager of a relegated Premier League side. He joined Burnley, so I got the wrong one, but I was really on the right lines here. I said Parker would join Burnley. Sorry, I said Parker would join Sheffield. He joined Burnley, who also got relegated that year. So yeah, I'm not too annoyed about this. Obviously, I was wrong, but hey, it's not an awful take. And who knows? Maybe Parker does horrible, gets sacked by Burnley at the start of next season. Wilder doesn't do a good job, and Parker is the Sheffield United manager next year. I could technically still be right.
Tottenham, Thomas Frank.
Ooh, okay.
The only Premier League manager on a longer-term contract than Postecoglou is Company, which will not offer the comfort and security it should, but nevertheless underlines how committed Spurs are to this relationship and how hard this one might be. Frank's Brentford contract actually runs to the same point of summer 2027, but if he is allowed to complete more than half a decade of perennial excellent Premier League management without being plucked by a club higher up the food chain, then everyone has failed in their duty. The Dane's name is apparently on the Liverpool shortlist and is always loosely connected with other such posts. I reckon by the time Ange leaves, which may be due to going to a bigger club, Frank will be ready to depart Brentford and Spurs will be chomping at the bit to get him.
Right, so at the time I'm recording this video, Ange Postecoglou has not been sacked by Spurs, but I think it's very likely he will be leaving Spurs, even if it's not at the end of this season, very soon. And you know what, Thomas Frank, I think it's one of the favourites to actually take over, so this one could potentially be right. It could be right. Thomas Frank, I stand by, would do a fantastic job at Spurs, and I think would be a pretty good fit at Spurs, and he might take over this summer, so we'll wait and see what happens here, but I think this actually has some real potential here to be bang on. In the summer, I would not be shocked if Thomas Frank joined Spurs, and I think they're probably definitely very interested in him. I think it's probably him or like Iraola they'll be interested in, so I'm just wrong right now, but I think there's a good chance I could be right in the future about this.
Everton, Julian Lopetegui. This one seems all too easy. Sean Dyche will get hit by the same Everton curse that every manager since David Moyes has been struck with. In either their second or third full season in charge, things absolutely collapse due to poor investment, and then Everton find themselves in a relegation battle. The board panic, sack the manager, hire some experienced guy to come in who saves them, everybody thinks they are back, and then they enter the same cycle once again.
Alright, wow, I mean, that was an unbelievable, accurate prediction right there. Sean Dyche will get hit by the second season syndrome, like every manager at Everton. He did indeed struggle in his second season. They were in a relegation battle. They panic, they sack him, they bring in an experienced head to guide them away from relegation. I just got the wrong one. I said it would be Lopetegui. It was, of course, David Moyes. But I was on the complete right lines there, and I was completely right with that prediction of how it would turn out. I just predicted the wrong guy. So, yeah. But hey, Lopetegui did return to the Premier League as another manager, so managing West Ham, so I guess there's something there, but that's really weird how I predicted that so accurately.
Manchester United, Roberto De Zerbi. The accepted wisdom is that any new owner would want to stamp their authority on the club by bringing in their own man, thus outlining it as a fresh era. It remains to be seen whether Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Omar Baradi and Dan Ashworth identify a candidate, or if they just continue with Eric Ten Hag, but I reckon they will actually stick with him for now, and then just sort of Tuchel Chelsea style, when a bad set of results occur next season, they will use it as an excuse to get rid of him and get their own man. And given that they have appointed the Man City CEO and Newcastle sporting director, I think they will appoint a manager who plays attacking good football and is a bit of a project manager.
Wow. Well, I've literally just done the exact same thing again. I predicted what would happen down to a T. I just got the final piece wrong. I said United would stick with Ten Hag and give him this season and then get rid of him after a bad set of results. Well, it's exactly what happened. Because remember, at this point there was a lot of rumours that Ten Hag was going to leave at the end of the season, but they kept him, like I said, but they sacked him this season. I said they would bring in a attacking project manager, and they did, but it was Ruben Amorim, not De Zerbi, who went on to join Marseille instead. Very, very accurate in terms of the
Crystal Palace, Sean Dyche. Fingers crossed for Oliver Glasner, but the last and only ever time Crystal Palace went proper foreign with their manager, the experiment lasted 4 games before a monumental panic. The new Palace manager has a Europa League winners' medal and some Bundesliga pedigree, but the reason he left Frankfurt was mainly due to clashes with the board. And considering Palace fans have been protesting this season about their board, I don't think this is a match made in heaven. I can see Glasner doing well for a while before maybe falling out with the board and it all falls apart. And then, in typical Palace fashion, they turn to an older English manager to get them out of trouble and keep them up in Sean Dyche, who by then, as I mentioned earlier, would probably be sacked by Everton for Julian Lopetegui.
Alright, so maybe this scenario which I've fathomed together was not as accurate, but could still happen, and this one, I think maybe still has some legs. I said Glasner would do pretty well at Palace for some time, which he has done and is doing, but then it will all fall apart due to board disagreements. Now, I'm not sure about board disagreements being the reason, but there is a lot of rumours that Glasner will be leaving at the end of this season for bigger jobs because he is touted by a lot of high-level Bundesliga sides. So, I could be right there, and of course, as I said there, Sean Dyche would be out of a job by this point, and he is out of a job. Would they turn to Dyche like at the start of the season? I don't know, probably not. But could they maybe appoint him? Let's say Glasner leaves this summer, they appoint someone, it doesn't go well during a relegation battle next season. I could see them maybe getting Dyche, so it's not an awful take, it's not an awful shout, but it's probably wrong for now.
Wolves, Sergio Conceição.
Ooh, okay.
As we all know, the Wolves owners are very close to Jorge Mendes, with pretty much every player they own being managed by Mendes. Now, to be fair, this relationship has slowly decreased, and this summer they flipped the script, hiring Gary O'Neill, who Mendes probably has never heard of in his life. I could see when Wolves move on from O'Neill, they give Mendes a call, ask him if he knows any good managers. He goes to his client list, sees Sergio Conceição, who's been at Porto for over a decade at this point, wants a bit of a change, wants a challenge. He tells him they can offer you a fat wage, Premier League football, and then boom, he's the next Wolves manager.
Well, I keep drafting these crazy scenarios, but I'm not even that far off yet again here. So I was wrong. Conceição did not become the next Wolves manager. It was, of course, Vitor Pereira. But I was kind of right in terms of, I said, when Gary O'Neill fails, they call Mendes up, say, give us a manager who you got. It wasn't Sergio Conceição, because I think by this point Conceição had gone to AC Milan. But it was Vitor Pereira, who is a Jorge Mendes client. So, yeah, look, I'm wrong, but the sort of idea behind it was right.
Arsenal, Arne Slot.
Oh, okay.
There is no clear end in sight to the Arteta process, even if the sort of reports that emerged claiming that he would jump ship to Barcelona can be expected to crop up. But it must come to an end at some point. I'll go for a bit of a rogue shout in Arne Slot. The Dutchman has so far only managed in his native country, impressing initially at AZ Alkmaar before being appointed Feyenoord manager. Slot guided Feyenoord to their first league title in 7 years last season, bringing a free-flowing style of football to Feyenoord, a style that has seen the likes of Spurs show interest in the Dutchman. I can see by the time Arteta is ready to leave, Slot would have gone to a bit of a stepping stone club, such as a Leipzig or a Leverkusen, would start to impress there, and then Arsenal go for him and sign him from there.
Wow, that is very, very interesting. So, I actually predicted that Arne Slot would be a manager for a Big Six side. Now, I predicted he would have a very different path. I didn't think he would make that jump straight from Feyenoord to a big club. I thought he would take a stepping stone route, but I did predict he would join a Big Six club, which I'm pretty pleased about because by this point I don't think he was particularly usually linked with big clubs. As I mentioned there, he was sort of loosely linked with Brighton roles and stuff. So I'm pretty pleased about this, even if obviously it was wrong. He joined Liverpool, not Arsenal. Slot was kind of on my radar as a manager by this point, so I'm pretty happy about that, even if I was completely wrong.
Aston Villa, Thomas Tuchel. Villa were undeniably the punchers when their current relationship started, but if and when Emery does leave, and the hope is that it won't be for some time, the club will be a more attractive proposition than perhaps ever before. They will have not quite their pick of managers, but certainly some heft with which to approach the field. That brings big names into their orbit, and considering they went for Emery and also Gerrard, they do love a big name manager. So I'll go for a bit of a crazy one in Thomas Tuchel. Tuchel's stock is slowly falling, with his time at Bayern Munich not going well, to say the least. And if he goes to another big club and fails, by then the Villa job will probably be available. They may be an established top 6 side by then, and Tuchel may be looking for a club to rebuild himself. And Villa love a big name, so they may opt for him.
Okay, so that is pretty punchy and pretty interesting. I could still technically be right here, but I mean, I'm kind of on the right lines here. I said, by the time Emery has sort of left Villa, I reckon they're an established Big Six side. I think he'll, take them to pretty good heights, which he is currently doing, and I don't know when Emery will leave Villa. He seems pretty settled there. Who knows? Maybe if Thomas Tuchel does poorly in the England job, he gets sacked, and then from that point, maybe the Villa job is available by then. I don't know. Look, we'll have to wait and see what happens here, because I don't think Emery's leaving anytime soon at Villa. But if I had to put my money on it, yeah, probably not. Tuchel would be the next Villa manager, but yeah, let's see what happens there.
Newcastle, Stefano Pioli. Newcastle ought to lean into everything Howe has established and simply make it more elite. So I think their next manager might be somebody who's not truly elite, but has some European pedigree about them, which is exactly what Stefano Pioli is.
Alright, this one is very, very unlikely not to happen here. Eddie Howe is of course still in a job at Newcastle, but I'm not sure when he'll leave, but when he does leave, I highly doubt Pioli would be the man that comes in. Pioli is now managing in the Saudi League. He's gone and got the bag, and I highly doubt if he was to make a return to Europe, he would be going to join a club under stature of Newcastle. So yeah, this one definitely a poor shout here.
And finally, we have Burnley, Michael Carrick. But I reckon what happens is Burnley go down. They maybe do alright in the championship, but then it starts to fall apart. Company goes. Then Alan Pace decides who's the next up and coming most beautiful girl in town. Everybody is talking about, oh, Michael Carrick, alright, let's get him.
Okay, well, that was a bit of a weird analogy, but my scenario here was pretty wrong. I said company would go down with Burnley, it wouldn't go well, eventually he would be sacked. I mean, I could not foresee that company would get relegated with Burnley and go to Bayern Munich. And of course, I was wrong here. Scott Parker came in, but hey, I did predict a ex-Tottenham and West Ham midfielder to be the next Burnley manager. Scott Parker did become that. He was an ex-Spurs and West Ham player, so hey, maybe there's something in that. But hey, look, I mean, it's not an awful shout. Never know. Maybe Michael Carrick could become a Burnley manager if Scott Parker doesn't work out. I don't think that's the worst shout in the world, but yeah, I was wrong. So that was all of them. Then, in terms of overall how I did, I technically didn't get one right. However, I'm taking Graham Potter as correct. I did predict Arne Slot and Ruben Amorim would be in the Prem with Big Six clubs, which did happen. I just got the wrong ones. I did predict David Moyes would be at a different Premier League club. Again, I just got the wrong one there. I predicted Scott Parker would be at a newly relegated Premier League side. Got the wrong one. So overall, I mean, this was a pretty hard video that I wasn't expecting to get any right, to be honest. But I don't think I did absolutely horrific. There were some pretty poor takes in there, but most of them weren't too bad. And hey, maybe some of them, like Thomas Frank to Spurs, could still happen. We'll have to wait and see. But let me know how you think I did in the comments below. If you guys have enjoyed this video,